Okay, we are back for the Week 5 recap and analysis, and I am here with Mr. White Wine Spritzer himself. Zach, how you doing?
I'm great, Jake. How about you?
Oh, I've been under the weather, but we're going to get this done, and
I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad to be here with you.
yeah, thanks for coming on.
Of course.
So this last week, we're going to do a quick recap, starting with your game. What happened, man?
Oh, well, I was asking myself the same question. It's kind of been it's like every other week, just a good performance followed by a bad performance. And it's really frustrating, but, I guess, I don't know, maybe I just have a team full of big names that maybe aren't getting it done fantasy-wise this season, and then it's a sign of things to come.
But if you could keep this streak up, I mean, it was what, 118, then 188, 122, 232, 130. I mean, so it is that kind of back and forth. If you could keep that up, you'd end up right around 500.
Well, yeah, that would be you win one week, you lose next week. Yeah, that is a 500 record there, Jake. Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because, I'll have a shitty week and then I'll have a big week. It's like I have the second most points in the league?
Something like that.
Third most points in the league. I've had the second most scored against me, and here I am at seventh.
Mm-hmm.
So
sitting at 7.
This week isn't looking too much better, seeing as 2 of my starters are out and 2 of the other ones are on bye. So
yeah, we'll get to the upcoming matchups here in a second. We're going to go through the rest of the recap. Solania beat Bear Down for Balls Deep. The new Eli's, I'm not sure about the name change yet, but that was 111 to 139 with Chubbawamba on top. Masochistic Monkeys squeaked by Clunge Plunger, as did the Dark Knights versus Sea Chicken Chokers. Outside of, I think, probably the Masochistic Monkeys taking in that win and me just barely squeaking by, what was the biggest shock from this last week?
I would say probably Solania, not so much beating Bears Down for Balls Deep, but again, just getting another high score, 175.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know, maybe just I keep underestimating his team, but that's probably the biggest surprise outside of probably Masochistic. I don't know. I think you were probably the real biggest surprise of the week, more so Cass not coming through. But hey, win's a win.
A win is a win. And I mentioned it in the chat, but I think it was just Russell Wilson giving me that. I always give him a hard time, but he finally just said, you know what? 35 points is enough for this week.
Yeah, well, I've been giving people, or I guess not so much me, but Lamar Jackson has been giving people that sort of leeway with when you go up against me. But that'll happen when you don't play the fourth quarter. So.
Yeah, well, we are going to go now on over to the old transactions because the last week has been craziness, with upcoming week being the buys are really kicking into gear with more COVID shuffling around, everything like that. What was the biggest addition that really jumped out at you for this last, when was it, 2 days ago?
Yeah, I really liked 2 pickups. I liked yours. Finally getting rid of AJ Green, which I say finally, but I mean, he's always been a good fantasy producer, but I think now is the right time to finally just cut bait. But I liked who you got for dropping him in Chase Claypool, especially because it was just announced today that the Steelers' leading wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, is out. So, I mean, you're just chasing points at this point, but now he instantly becomes the number 2 receiver. So
yeah,
I thought that was a great pickup, and it worked out so much better than you probably could have imagined.
I really did not expect to get him, at all. I assumed Sean was going to jump in there, and if not, Hayden, which I was going to bring up too. Most years, you're actually the one on top for the most moves, but it looks like this year you're actually down at 11, whereas Hayden's at 18, Haley's at 16, Deshaun's at 15. You're ways down there. What's happening?
Well, surprisingly, despite my record, for some ungodly reason, I like my roster, and most of my pickups have been, defenses because I live by streaming,
hmm
and a lot of Michael Thomas being on IR, I've been able to just use that open roster spot to pick up randos and just leave them rotting on my bench. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still waiting for maybe some of like a young guy like Jerry Jeudy. I still want to see what he can do before I give up on him. And
hmm
I got a dependable option on like Tyler Boyd. So really, it's just I like my roster despite my record. So.
Yeah. Well, and then another one of the ones I did want to point out, I liked the idea of Steel Dynasty picking up Ebron. I know we always say he goes for the Steelers regardless, but I just like that one, especially with, like you said, the what's his name going down. But he did end up now dropping Ebron and picking up Gesicki. The other one that I do have to point out is just Tanner finally going out and dropping Michael Gallup. I believe there was a conversation a while back about that, but
Yeah, you guys and your weird little rivalry.
Yeah.
I think maybe Dak going down was probably the instigating factor for that. I think even with Dak being the starting quarterback, there's always that hope that he could potentially go off. But now, I mean, in Andy Dalton really isn't a horrible fantasy quarterback. So you never know. Maybe Gallup becomes his favorite target. But yeah, I think it was about time to let him go.
Yeah. But last one I did want to point out was I was actually surprised. I had assumed Brandon Cooks had been picked up and was wasting away on somebody's bench. But Tanner obviously went out and picked him up today, and that one kind of shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good pickup. I heard a stat somewhere, probably one of my fantasy football podcasts that I listen to, that said that the Titans, who are the Texans' opponent this week, they give up more points to the opposing team's wide receiver 2 than they do the wide receiver 1.
Yeah, that was on Footballers.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting and kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Shitty, because I have Will Fuller, so.
Yeah. I don't know.
I also, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I also really liked, well, not so much liked. I think it was a great move, but it's also one that prompts me to call somebody out. What the hell is Deshaun doing not picking up Alexander Madison with that number 1 waiver priority?
I don't. He said he was busy. He wasn't able to put it in. I know it was a little confusing, and so we'll just leave it at that. I mean, because they changed it from like running Tuesday night into Wednesday now into Wednesday night into Thursday. We'll say it was something like that, but I don't know,
Well,
man.
fair enough, but that was an extra day. So if you're busy, that's still no whatever. Good
All right,
pickup
logic.
by, good pickup by Hayden there.
Yeah, I do agree. Even if it is a 1 or 2 week rental, it's like that's a pretty good one.
Yeah. So my 2 favorite pickups of the week basically kind of screw me. Not to make this whole podcast about me, but that's what I do.
Hey, that's all right. I was actually just about to commend you too, because you are the only person still going in the survival pick again this year. So congratulations there.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I got to be successful at something.
You picked Arizona this last week, is that right?
Yeah, and I didn't feel great about it, but they played the Jets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my strategy.
Yeah, no, that's a good strategy. I had picked the Cardinals in week 3, and they screwed me. So I'm glad that they were able to come through for you.
Yeah, very inconsistent team.
Yeah, but next up we do have the league pick'em. It looks like Sean is still in first. Haley and you, Zach, have both come up. I believe you two were the teams that got 3 correct out of the 5. So kind of knocked Tanner down a little bit, but we're all within striking distance. So obviously keep at that one, because as I recall, Sean has had that shoe trophy for 2 years now.
Yep, and I had it before, and I'm looking to take it back. I want that smelly ass shoe back in my man cave.
Yeah. So one of the things now, as we do move on to the old matchups for this upcoming week, something we are going to do a little different this time is I do want to do a couple bold predictions, and mine will come as we're going through these. But you had mentioned you were thinking about a couple. Where do you want to throw those in?
Um, well, I mean, do you want me to just throw one out right now,
Sure.
or okay? Um, One of my bold predictions. Sorry, I wrote it down, trying to find it here. Uh, I am the only person that's picking, even though they're a favorite to win. I'm the only person that's picking Masochistic Monkeys to win this week. I think they're going to beat Sea Chicken Chokers, and it's going to come on the back of ooh, that sounds gross. It's gonna sorry, didn't mean to work blue there. Um, it's it's gonna happen because of Adam Thielen, and I for some reason Yahoo woefully like under projects for him.
Mm-hmm.
They're only projecting 16 points for Adam Thielen going up against Atlanta in that horrible pass defense. So I see a huge game from Thielen, and Eli made a really good pickup getting Tannehill this week too. So although I would have preferred Stafford this week, but that's neither here nor there. I think Eli's going to take Cass down this week.
Yeah, I can see that. And actually, as I'm looking over his roster, I just realized one of his players contributes to my main bold prediction here. But before I get to that, we are going to go over a couple of the other matchups. Dark Knights are going against Solania. You mentioned Masochistic Monkeys versus Sea Chicken Chokers. The New Eli's versus Clunge Plunger. Flaming Moses taking on Chubbawamba. Both of you are at 2-3, so hopefully it doesn't end up in a tie or something crazy like that. Yeah. Then last is Steel Dynasty and Bear Down for Balls Deep. They're right in the middle of the pack, so that one should be interesting. But my two bold predictions. The first one I'm going to go to is I'm going to go to the Steel Dynasty because this one kind of plays into not only mine but Eli's team and Sean. I think this week the Cleveland Steelers game is going to be ridiculous to the point where, and I mentioned it earlier in a text, I think Ben Roethlisberger is going to throw for 6 touchdowns at least, like tying the record. As I recall, he did that a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
I think he's going to throw for like 6 touchdowns, but only if Sean leaves him on his bench.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, I mean, don't put that in his head because now he'll probably insert him into the lineup and Myles Garrett will rip his head off or at least club it with a helmet.
But that's what I'm saying. It'll be at least like 56 points fantasy-wise for Roethlisberger. And that's my first bold prediction because that's going to affect all the people that have the wide receivers. Eli obviously has James Conner, and it'll be a passing touchdown. It won't be a rushing touchdown.
That is a spicy hot take, and I love to see Tanner lose. So, well, I guess if Roethlisberger's on the bench,
it'll be on the bench. That'll be the thing. So it'll make he'll be a little sad that he left him on his bench, but he'll also be happy at the fact the Steelers just wallop the Browns. It'll be one of those like 45 to 30 point games.
Yeah, well, I could see that. I really hope that Odell is healthy for that game because that'll definitely help contribute to making it a shootout, and it'll help my team win.
Yeah.
New drinking game. Every time I make the topic about me.
Hey, that sounds like a plan.
Bitches.
All right. What other bold predictions do you have for us?
Wow. Well, speaking of that, my bold prediction, my second one, and my last one, because I could only come up with 2. The number 1 tight end on the week is going to be Evan Ingram.
Yeah?
Yep. And I know he's been a complete disappointment this year, but they started getting involved last week, and Washington's defense, while it is a pretty good defense, they're not great against the tight end, and the Giants have no weapons. So I'm expecting no less than 2 touchdowns and or 100 receiving yards from Evan Ingram.
Whoa.
And I'm not just saying that as wishful thinking because I picked him up to fill in for Waller this week. I firmly believe it, which means he's going to go for like 0.5 points. But, yeah.
No, I can see that one, especially being against Washington. But interesting. I like it.
Well, thank you.
All right, my last one, because I only did 2 as well, is actually for the New Eli's versus Clunge Plunger. Because Sean is going to leave Ben Roethlisberger on his bench, and that would make him have the highest points in the league. I think the New Eli's versus Clunge Plunger is going to be the weekly high point scorers. Both teams are going to outscore everyone, and I think this is Deshaun's first win. With Mahomes in Buffalo, and then Jefferson versus Atlanta. Adams finally coming back. He did pick up Chase Edmonds. Brown is back as well. I think the only downside is going to be probably Cooper, just because we don't know exactly what the Red Rocket is going to do there in prime time. But
I agree. I like that matchup. I like the call of it being the highest scoring game this week. I think that Chiefs and Bills game is going to be really fun to watch, and they're going to be putting up a lot of points. And again, I agree. Jefferson, he's being just, I feel, under projected. Like going up against Atlanta, they're only projecting him for 9 points. I think it's going to be more like around that 20 range. But yeah, I like that. That's a good take.
Yeah, and again, I do think this is Deshaun's first win versus Hayden, sadly, but they're still going to stay at 9th and 10th, and since they are 9th and 10th, that'll be a little more fun to watch, and that they outscore literally every other team. Because Sean did point out in the chat that it is all about schedule and when you manage to score your points and what week and that sort of thing, and I think, sadly, this week they're both going to outscore everybody, and it won't really matter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I picked Deshaun to win this week, too, so... here's to hopefully your first win, Deshaun.
Yeah. All right. What other stuff do you have to add here, sir, before we jump on over into the old power rankings?
Nothing really, other than, I mean, I guess I could address Sean's take on the whole point thing, because he was kind of giving you shit. I believe you're in first place, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And saying that, well, you didn't score as many points, but who has the least points scored against them in the league this year?
By the way you're talking, if I were to take it, is it Sean?
It is Sean.
Oh, okay.
And by a fairly large margin. So,
oh dang it! It is. He has
that for what it's worth.
714 against him. Then it goes Haley at 731. I'm at 732. Clunge Plungers 737.
Yeah, so maybe you're right, Sean. Maybe your 3-2 record is a little undeserved.
Ooh, he is supposed to be hopefully on next week. I've been going down by last year's standings, and so Sean should be on next week, and he might have a rebuttal for you.
Well, I hope he listens, which I don't think he will.
I really don't think anybody listens. I know Arthur said he did, but...
I listen every week. Let's go Bulls.
I appreciate it, man. All right, we're going to jump on over into the power rankings. These were submitted, and I'm just going to read them off to you, get your reaction from them, and we'll go from there, all right?
Sure.
So this week it is movie titles that describe the team or the team's season. This week... for number 1, last week's number 3 is actually The Dark Knights. Movie comparison is Die Another Day. Despite a rash of injuries to key players, the Dark Knights keep plugging away and collecting wins. The sign of a great manager is making the right weekly moves to help mask the deficiencies caused by those injuries, and that's exactly what they've done. Looking at their roster, one would think that this team's season is doomed, but they just knocked off the number 1 team in the league, and are looking to get their stud running back Christian McCaffrey back soon. Death will have to wait for the reigning champ. I like that one.
Yeah, I mean, a little flowery there at the end, but yeah, I mean, I'm always a fan of, you're the defending champ, and, well, I'm not a fan of that. I really hate that, actually, but it's kind of like everybody's favorite to win the Super Bowl this year is the team that won it last year, so... and you're in first place while the rest of us are bunched up at that 3-2, 2-3 record. So,
yeah,
as much as I want to argue about it, I can't.
And I think the weirdest comp in this one is Die Another Day. I mean, wasn't that Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a big Bond guy.
Oh.
But yeah, I think it is because I believe they made a video game out of it.
Yeah, so. I was gonna say Die Another Day. He's not the best James Bond, but it's one of those you actually enjoy, like a popcorn flick. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what I feel like the Dark Knights are this year. It's just a popcorn flick where you're just they're kind of really shitty, but when it's on TV, you're gonna watch it anyway.
And Pierce Brosnan's so handsome.
Uh-huh.
So just Just throwing that out there, I don't know, for what it's worth.
All right. Moving on. Last week's number 1, now number 2 is Sea Chicken Chokers. Movie comparison is Kick-Ass. Sea Chicken Chokers got out of the gate hot, kicking everyone's asses who got in their way. They looked dominant through the first 3 weeks and have currently scored the most points in the league. Despite all that, they've lost 2 consecutive games and are starting to look mortal. Will this team revert back to its ass-kicking ways, or will it live up to the name as Chokers? Based on who their next opponent is, it looks like they'll right the ship.
Oh, who's their opponent again? I just exited that screen.
I believe it's Masochistic Monkeys this week. Nope. Yes.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yes.
All right.
It's Masochistic Monkeys.
Sounds like somebody's got a little faith in Cass turning it around.
Yeah. I was actually going to point something out that I was looking through the records and I noticed, and it's a weird thing. I believe Eli's actually on a winning streak. Last I checked, he was on like a 3-game win streak or something like that, going 0-2 and then winning the next 3.
Yeah, it says he's on a 3-game winning streak.
That going up against Cass, who just, I mean, I don't know. I think you might be right in that that crazy upset.
Well, I hope not, but
yeah, we don't need to give him anything to. Anyways,
yeah.
Last week's number 4, this week's number 3 is Solenia. Movie is Hocus Pocus. What is Solenia's secret to their consistency? The only logical answer, of course, is magic. What sort of sorcery has Solenia been practicing to keep up their winning ways? Whatever it is, that sort of wizardry should be saved for a Harry Potter movie. Regardless, the resident half-baked prince keeps rolling as they defeated fellow surprise team Bear Down for Balls Deep in convincing fashion. They might have just used some of that black magic to save them from mini bye-week hell, as they'll be without their top running back and wide receiver this week. Let's all hope this team's next trick is a disappearing act.
Ooh.
That's funny. Half-baked prince.
That's a Harry Potter reference, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Christine just got into those, so I'm vaguely aware, but
yeah,
not my genre.
I was going to say, slight left turn, Half-Blood Prince is the best Harry Potter movie, but that's neither here nor there. Did you know the week that Arthur was on, when was that? That was last week.
That was last week.
Yeah. When he was on, if you listen to him, he was actually completely there versus the off-season one that he and Tanner were on. And it's actually because he was not half-baked this last week. So
yeah, I will say I found Arthur genuinely funny last week, and not that he's not in person, but usually on the podcast he's pretty straightforward. I was laughing pretty heartily at some of his shit, so well done.
Yeah. All right, last week's number 2, this week's number 4, Bear Down for Balls Deep. Movie is Against All Odds. Is this where we finally start seeing the overachiever come crashing back down to earth? If it is, it's been a strange, head-scratching start to the season that nobody saw coming. With a roster uglier than a Drew Brees deep ball, Bear Down for Balls Deep has somehow fluttered its way into the waiting arms of 3 victories. An impressive feat, to say the least, and it's something that can't be taken away from them. But all good things must come to an end, so it's time for this ragtag team to step aside and let the big boys play.
Wow. A little harsh.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, you have no business winning these many games, as many games as you have, Tanner. So just get out of the way, let the good teams win, and yeah, move on.
Yeah. All right. Last week's number 7. This week's number 5. Jump upwards for Steel Dynasty. The movie is The Fly. Much like a fly, Steel Dynasty just won't go away. Just when you think they're gone, they pop back up and remain annoyingly relevant. A thorough throttling of Flaming Moe's last week may be the kickstart this team needs to propel itself into the playoffs again. Though, having the fewest points scored against them this season has clearly helped Steel Dynasty to their 3-2 record. So really, the rest of the league is to blame for keeping this pest buzzing around. Somebody get the fly swatter.
Well, I have nothing to say, but I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because of the, what was it, thorough throttling of my team?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I agree. Sour grapes, but whatever.
All right. Last week's number 5. This week's number 4 is The Flaming Moes. Movie is Falling Down. Well, that was short-lived. After scoring 232 points the week before and looking like the dominant presence they were projected to be, Flaming Moe's came tumbling back down to reality and down the standings as well, losing big to Steel Dynasty. And now they have to deal with the loss of their top running back, Dalvin Cook, after suffering through 4 weeks without their top wide receiver, Michael Thomas. Gosh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been brutal.
It's looking more and more like this plummet will continue. Hopefully this doesn't cause the owner to descend into madness like the lead character of the film. Actually, that would kind of be entertaining.
Wow. It's funny because as soon as you mentioned that, I love that movie.
Yeah.
But I'm going nuts. I'm going full William Defense Foster right now. And for everybody that's seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I think that ranking might be a little too high for me.
Really?
I mean, I guess if you're looking at points for and against,
yeah,
I guess you could kind of justify. But again, like I said, maybe I'm starting to feel like my team is just a bunch of big names that aren't producing like they should. But whatever, someone has faith in me, I guess. Well, yeah. Sort of.
Well, and a side note here, the Yahoo rankings, they're constantly updating based on current projections and the team and all that. And obviously they're not always accurate or ever. But as of right now, based on this last week and all the moves, everything like that, the top 5 teams, actually we should do 6 because that's playoffs. Number 1 is actually Flaming Moe's, then Clunge Plunger, Dark Knights, Sea Chicken Chokers, Chubbawamba, and Steel Dynasty. For the top
That's rest
6.
Of season?
That's what it's projecting for the rest of the season, yeah. Capping 3 out at 7 and 6. They have me at 8 and 5, and then both you and Clunge Plunger at 9 and 4.
Well, I mean, to begin the season, they had me at 15 and 0 or whatever it was, so I have no faith in that. So fuck off, Yahoo.
Okay. Last week's number 8. This week's number 7, moving up in the world, is Masochistic Monkeys. Movie is Master of Disguise.
A great one.
I love that movie. The Masochistic Monkeys are a bad team, disguising themselves as a competent team. But the reality is, they're on a 3-game winning streak after starting 0-2 and are currently the hottest team in the league. It's hard to buy in on them, though, especially considering their best player, Dak Prescott, is lost for the season. It's still tempting to compare this team to the movie, The Never-Ending Story, as the perpetual losing that they're so accustomed to will inevitably return. But for now, they'll just fool themselves into thinking they actually have a shot this year. Oh. That's funny.
I don't know. I think they should be ahead of me, honestly, the way a 3-game win streak, I feel like they're not getting enough credit. But, yeah, that Dak loss really hurts.
Yeah. But I think when it comes, like, the toughest part with some of these, though, is the fact that, like, the points. I know right now Dark Knights is number 1. I would still put, like, Sea Chicken Choker slightly above it just from points, and I imagine that's simply why your Flaming Moe's is slightly ahead of Masochistic Monkeys, is just that, what is that, like a 20-point difference? And you've had, obviously, the tougher schedule, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that, but again, when it comes down to you and the Sea Chicken Chokers, that's who you beat last week, right?
That's true.
So I guess it's kind of hard to rank someone who lost to one team above that team. That would be my rationale. But
sure, that makes sense. But all right, we're going to move on in these. Last week's number 6, this week number 8. A little bit of a drop for Clunge Plunger. Movie comparison is Whiplash. This team is maybe the hardest to figure out. One week they'll be flying high and cruising to an easy victory. The next week, they look like the worst team in the league. On the surface, they have a deep, talented roster, but far too often they underperform. Every week, Clunge Plunger is liable to get the bends from the drastic change in performance for their team, or at the very least, whiplash. This week might be a get-right week for them, considering who their opponent is. But let's not put anything past this team. They can suck with the worst of them.
Yeah, I had high hopes not high hopes, but I had high expectations for Clunge Plunger. But yeah, they really haven't got it done this year.
How much of that do you think is the fact that he's just constantly churning waivers and not sticking with anybody that he's picking up?
I mean, maybe there's something to be said for that, but I have been able to do that throughout my fantasy career, and I know Deshaun's been successful at that. And
true.
some of his waiver pickups, I mean, he's got James Robinson, right, from the Jaguars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I missed out on that guy in like every league because I thought, well, I don't want the Jaguars' supposed RB1, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually been killing it. So, yeah, I guess it's just kind of hit or miss, maybe mostly miss on the waiver wire for him. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain. But,
Sure.
I mean, I'm glad someone's worse than me.
Well, last week's number 9, this week's number 9, also worse than you, is Chubbawamba. Movie comparison is Up in Smoke. Sure, Chubbawamba picked up their second win of the season, but it came against the only winless team in the league. With a roster that resembles the island of misfit toys, Chubbawamba has little chance to remain afloat with Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler sidelined for the foreseeable future. You could say that their season went up in smoke the week those two talented running backs went down. Perhaps it's best for Chubbawamba to just forget about fantasy football, roll up a couple doobies, and just relax, man, because winning just isn't in their future.
Oh, little stoner humor there.
Sorry.
Oh, what are you smoking on, Jake?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean,
how much?
Again.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say again. I feel like we're kind of discrediting another, team that got a win. But yeah, I guess beating Deshaun is nothing to celebrate. So
yeah, I mean, a win's a win. But how much do you think this is going to change now that Bell signed with the Chiefs?
I guess it's just how they're going to utilize him. Is it going to be a 50-50 split? Mm-hmm. Is he going to be the third down back catching all the passes out of the backfield? Is he going to be the goal line back? I mean, if anybody knows how to use running backs, it's Andy Reid. But
sure.
I kind of feel like my gut is they spent a first-round pick on Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they're going to completely sweep him to the side or even take a good chunk of his carries or just on-field snaps away. But or maybe it's let's get a veteran presence in there and teach the young guy something. I mean, obviously CEH has struggled around the goal line, so maybe that's what they're thinking, a mentor role. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if he has any shot of succeeding, it's in Kansas City. So
yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't imagine it'll be a LaShawn McCoy sort of situation. At least I hope not. But
no, and I mean, Bell is younger and maybe a little more durable, although in the last few years that's kind of not been the case. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
How much of that was the Jets, though?
A lot, but also Adam Gase is just the worst coach in football. I can't believe he still has a job.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, he hates talent. I think that's what it is. But
it's the new Chip Kelly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Chip Kelly was stubborn. He had his style, and he was not going to adapt for anybody on the roster.
Yeah, but
I think, in my opinion, Bell looks shot. But again, it could be because he was playing for the Jets, and he really just didn't give a shit.
Yeah. I mean, upcoming matchups for the Kansas City Chiefs is obviously this week is Buffalo, then it's at Denver against the Jets, Carolina, and then, bye from there.
Well,
but those are...
Well, aside from Denver, I mean, those next two games, you can be looking at possibly two top 10 running backs, same team, kind of like Kamara and Ingram did from New Orleans a few years ago.
So, or this year before they both got hurt, what's his name? Cleveland and Chubb, or in Cleveland for Chubb and the name escapes me. What's his name? Hunt.
Kareem Hunt.
Thank you.
Yep, there you go. You got it.
Yeah. But, all right, well, we'll see how that one goes. We're going to finish off these power rankings real quick. This week's number 10, last week's number 10 as well, is the new Eli's. Movie comparison is All Is Lost. It's been that kind of a season for the former Boomer Busters. This 0-5 team is a sinking ship with little to no hope of being rescued. There is a faint hint of optimism, though, as 8 of the 10 teams in the league are either 3-2 or 2-3. So technically, the new Eli's aren't far out aren't as far out of it as it seems, but it's only going to, gosh darn it. So technically the new Eli's aren't as far out as it seems, but it's going to take a complete 180 from this team and a nearly complete overhaul of the roster for them to crawl back into contention. We all know SOS typically stands for Save Our Ship, but in the case of the new Eli's, it might stand for Sink or Swim, or maybe the more appropriate Stench of Shit. Wow.
Yeah, that got ugly at the end. Not your reading.
I was going to say, I kept fumbling over myself.
Oh, no,
kind of ruined that one, but it's like the was NFC East a little bit.
Yeah.
With the way everybody's kind of like, what, a game and a half back or something like that?
Yeah, and the Eagles being 1-3-1 or something terrible like that, leading the division.
Yeah, well, that's just trash.
Yeah.
But
horrible.
Anyways, sir, so that was the power rankings. Anything you want to add to that or kind of point out in it?
No, other than you kind of just have to agree with that final one. When you're 0-5, you have to be considered the worst team in the league. But there's only one way to go, and that's up. Hopefully, or you can just stay, having the stench of shit on you as the yeah.
All right, and so I do have to ask. I asked Arthur last week, and I've been keeping up with it. These power rankings are going to continue to come to us weekly through the season. But do you have any guess as to who's been submitting these?
It's tough. I was kind of on board with him when he brought up your dad.
Oh yeah.
But the more I think about it, some of the coarse language is really throwing me off of that. So. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Eli, but I feel like he just gets hammered every week. He's on a 3-game win streak and he's still getting ripped apart. So I don't know. I'm really at a loss.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will, again, keep those going as the season goes on. But as we do look to wrap up this podcast, we will hopefully have you on at some point. We're going to go into Sean and then through the rest of last season's rankings. But anything you want to add or trash talk or anything like that?
I could say some really horrible, mean things about Haley this week, my opponent.
Sorry, she doesn't listen to these, so you can just go ahead.
No, since I'm talking to her husband right now, I'll just keep it short and sweet. I'm going to whoop her ass in fantasy, for the record. And that'll be it. Also, clearly, I'm not a great trash talker, so generic fantasy football trash talk. Yay. There we go. You're going down.
Yeah, sports. All right, sir. Well, I appreciate it again. Thank you so much for coming on here. We'll have you on again soon, all right?
Thank you. I look forward to it.
All right. Until next time.